Okay, you're all set.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to the March version of the First Friday webinar, talking about all things eData and data collection, data entry, and in today's case, data analysis with the template. See a lot of familiar faces, and so welcome back and good afternoon. We're just going to dive right into a demonstration of eData Access Template Performance Reports. Before we begin, I will note that you likely all know this already, but we'll make a note to say that version 2 of the Access template is now available at the PA Adult Ed Resources website. So you can go there, download the template. There are various documents we put up to support that. The most notable might be a PDF version and a Google Doc version of a spreadsheet that indicates pages and objects, in other words, queries and reports, that were previously in version 1, and now that spreadsheet indicates where those items are in version 2. So some of the items that were on, say, the reports page have been moved. Many of them have been moved to the hours page, and so that spreadsheet indicates that. So if you are finding yourselves in a situation where you're experiencing a little frustration trying to find a report that you used to love to run and still want to run, if you look at that document and first find the old version, what you're used to seeing, and then you should see right on the same row, right across, you'll see what the new version is. There were a few things we renamed, so just as a heads up. So that just kind of puts a lid on what we already have discussed with you for a couple First Fridays in a row now with version 2. We're kind of moving on to a general concept today of the eData Access template reports. And then just so you're aware, what I'm going to do here is kind of go over what we'll review today. Then at the end, as we often do, we can take questions that you may have, either on the performance reports that we're going to review shortly, or we can take questions just in general in version 2. So if you'd like to ask more, we will definitely set aside some time at the end for some questions. And I'll pause every now and then as we go through the performance reports things to see if you have any questions with that as well. So without further ado, as discussed, we are going to go ahead and review with you today the performance reports in the Access template. Many of you I know already run the reports. We've had discussions about them before, but in case you're new, or in case you're new to running the performance reports, we will do a demonstration here shortly, but just in general, what they are is they contain a data summary of your performance. And that, generally speaking, means who you've entered in the system, of those people you've entered, who has hours, of those people who have hours, who's enrolled, and some other metrics like post-testing percentages and gains from those post-tests. And also there are corresponding reports that are for family literacy specifically. I know some of you have family literacy programming, and those go into a lot of detail with that, including the parameters required for enrollment like ILA hours, parenting hours, early childhood hours, and so on. And it's sort of that 10,000-foot view, top-down version of looking at your data and seeing a summary of what you have. They are also, once you run them over intervals of time, they can show changes over time. It's really the single best resource in the Access template that we have to show changes over time. Typically, what you see in the template is a snapshot of the export that you maybe did 5 minutes before you updated the template, and as of 5 minutes ago, for example, you would see all the data that was in the system, but it's very static. It's very, this is as of today, if you will. And then next week, when you update the template, you see next week's data and so on. So the performance reports give you an opportunity to see change over time. And when you're trying to make programmatic decisions, that can be very helpful to see the rate of change even. I will note there's no endorsement implied here, but I will let you know that also the division has access to the same template. And as a result, they can and do run those same reports, the performance reports, So that is another item that they may refer to in discussions with you. So they can be nice to have just from the perspective of being able to talk apples to apples with data. If they're referring to specific metrics that appear on those reports, it may be that they're looking at those reports. And if you have the same exact report, that can help clarify discussion before it even begins. The challenge with performance reports, if you will, is that they are and require user maintenance. When you get a template from us, like you just did recently with version 2, it is ready to go to accept the data from eData. And you really just, outside of pressing the eData update button, and of course, following the procedure of putting your data in your data folder and all those things before that, that one button press kind of just sets up the entire template for your use. From that point forward, after you update the template, everything is ready to go. You run queries, and that's that. The performance reports, though, require your hand to get in there and run them and maintain them, back them up, and whatnot. We're going to describe each of those things here in a little bit. We're going to do a demonstration, but just keep in mind that the reason we're doing this today is just in part so that you understand and see the process of how these reports are both run and then maintained. To review just those the process that goes into that, we're going to cover building the performance reports, which is really the creation of them, then backing them up, which the build and backup, the two Bs, go together. It's sort of a pairing that you might want to keep in mind as part of your routine. Restoring is if something goes wrong or if you get a new version of the template. So the restore is a less frequently used feature, but one that you're definitely going to want to be familiar with so that you can have ongoing access to the reports that you have created. So I think that's a good point for me to switch out of this screen here and just go right to Access. Just to start, just to orient everybody, we're going to go ahead and in version 2, we're going to navigate via the switchboard. And one note that I'll make is that before doing anything with your performance reports, you will want to make sure that your template is up to date as of that moment. So today being March 1st, I have updated my template this morning at 9 a.m. I might even be inclined to do another update before dealing with my performance reports here, because maybe a lot of data entry was done this morning. I think a lot of your agencies, you do data entry on Fridays and catch up with attendance and things. So maybe I'd run another export at 12:09 here and import that. But that having been said, the idea is making sure that your update is aligned with the date, the current date. Because when I click the build button that you'll see in a minute, it's going to build a row that's dated 3/1. And so if I click that build button and build 3/1, I want data from March 1st or through March 1st. So again, let's go up to the top left corner of the screen and we'll find the performance reports in the switchboard and go ahead and click that and we'll go to this page. What we have is Steve has kindly prepared for our use today a scrubbed version of both the template and of the performance reports. So you're just going to see made up numbers that are just kind of, well, made up. So we are going to show some reports, but they're just kind of bogus information. So there's a lot going on when you come to this screen, and it could be a little bit intimidating, but we're going to break it down for you and tell you a little bit about how these work. And if you are a current user of the performance reports, hopefully something embedded within what we say is new information for you, or maybe you learn a little something new. So even if you're used to running these reports, hopefully this is still a good kind of general review of things. The page is generally broken up into two sections. So this top section with all these buttons and text is really for your use. And as you might imagine, with the term MIS use only, everything in the bottom half of the page you can ignore. It's not anything that you need. This is for advisor and MI use only. So the nice thing is right off the bat, we only need to concern ourselves with the top half of the page. If I come to this page and I have, again, a populated template, and I've never made performance reports before, you could simply start by clicking this Build Performance Data button. And Steve's added a little indicator here that shows when the most recent build was run. So just yesterday on leap day, 229. And even a little counter here, how many days since the last build. What we recommend, and we probably will say this more than once, is to pick a regular routine interval and incorporate that into your schedule. So in updating the performance reports at least once a month, every 2 weeks might be even better. I certainly wouldn't recommend going the other direction and doing them every day, and you'll see why here in a minute. So the sweet spot's probably something between every 2 weeks and once a month, so that you can not have too much data to sort through, but have enough that you can see those changes over time. So let's say I did what I just explained. I updated my template. I came here and I clicked the build button. What I would see is, depending on which of the 4 buttons here I click, and you can see it will be aligned with whatever of the 4 contracts you have. If let's say we have 064 only, these other buttons wouldn't do anything. So I'm just going to click my agency, and you can see I actually have one agency in here. I'm going to click 064. And so we're going to see, I'll make that a little bigger for all of you. You're going to see an example of the performance report itself. Now, this one clearly has been not just built today, but built several times over the past month or so. So it looks like this is done about once a month. We've got 9/29, 10/6, 11/8, and so on. Skip some dates in there. That's fine. There's no, to my knowledge, there's no requirement that you have to run the performance reports at all, let alone over a certain interval. So when we say once a month, it's kind of just a recommendation. So we're looking at some data here coming in about once a month, and you can see how the numbers have evolved over time. Now, some of the numbers, if you see something kind of wonky, it probably just because we were throwing fake data in here. So like the enrollment percentage, I can see it actually went down. You wouldn't normally expect to see that, but that's fine. Again, bogus data. If this is new to you, there's a lot to absorb here. But what's nice is Steve has added to these tables a nice little description, a key, if you will, at the bottom of each of these sheets. So if you're wondering what any of the column headers represent, or if there's calculations, that's all indicated down here. So any of those headers have descriptions. And again, if we scroll back up, you can see the basic format of the report. Each time I were to click build on that performance reports page, it's going to create a row. And when we create the rows, it's just another, of course, another row of data. But if I were to press that button twice in a row on the same day, at the same time, with the same data in my template, I might get a duplication. You could see that here. See how there's 229 twice? So we did that on purpose just to show that there's a way that's built into the template. Steve built in a way we could fix that. So we're going to cover that here down here in a few minutes. This is in what's called a report view, so a print preview. So we're going to go ahead in the ribbon here in the top middle. I'm just going to close the report. And one thing to keep in mind is when I click this button, this 064 button, it will open the report. That's probably stating the obvious. But the reason I did that, and I wanted to show you this, is if I go back to performance and I build and I just click this button again, it's actually just going to open this tab. So if you don't see something change and you expected to see a change, close the tab or close print preview, either one, just like that. And then click and reopen and rerun. That actually reruns the report. So if anything changed in your data, and that actually holds true with a lot of the different queries and things in the template. If you click a button for something that's already open, it just goes to that tab if it's already open. Again, many of the queries are static data, so nothing's changed. You wouldn't really be surprised. But since you're building performance reports, you will see changes. So to be honest with you, my habit is when I'm done looking at this, before I go back to the performance page, I don't just click on the performance tab. And I know this may be kind of small on your screen, but up in the left under the ribbon, there's a tab here that says performance. And I could just go back to the page. But I have to remember, if I run this report again, it's just going to open the tab. So what I have sort of developed as muscle memory is I just close this. It doesn't take long for that report to run. I just close it. That way, if I make any changes here, I'll see those changes when I rerun the report. So that's this first little top section here. After we've built and maybe looked at our report, then what we're going to want to do and get in the habit of doing is click this Backup Performance Data to Excel. And that's simply because when you build these performance reports, they are just yours. They only live in this template file that you're using. They're not located anywhere else. We can't recover them for you. And you can imagine if you've spent months creating these reports, you wouldn't want to lose them. So after you've clicked the build, and I would say, again, make a habit of maybe just checking that the build worked and your numbers look reasonable by clicking one or more of these numbered buttons. Then you could click Backup Performance Data to Excel. And that actually is a reference, or is referenced up here in this yellow box, where it says backup folder is C:\data/performance_report_backup. If you create this folder in your data folder, which you should all have because you're running the template, that is where the two files indicated in the description here to the right of the button will be sent. Table performance, table family performance. They're simply what they look like. They're Excel files that contain everything that we saw in this performance report. In fact, if I call up I'm just going to pull over from my separate screen here. If I pull over so here's my data folder on my machine. And in it now is this performance reports backup folder. If I double click this folder, you'll see I have backed up on a previous backup operation, both of those tables. So that's what you'll literally see. And I'm not going to open these because they have real data in them, but if we were to open these up, you'll just see basically a spreadsheet version of your performance reports. It won't make as much sense. It's not as useful. It's not sorted by the column headers and all that in a way that is easily understood, but it is just the raw data, if you will. And you can see I back up stuff and things. You can use subfolders to back things up in this folder. It still will work just fine. So that's basically what that backup process does. And that does just what it sounds like. It basically has a way of, if something were to go wrong in the template that I'm currently using, or if in the future I need to download a new version and use that backup has the files stored safely on your machine. I'll pause here for a minute. I've kind of thrown a lot of information at you. A lot of this is review for those of you that run the performance reports. Any questions before I kind of dive into the remaining options here in this section? Another quick note that you're all likely already aware of, but that I'll point out if you haven't had a chance to upgrade, so to speak, to version 2, is that the backup folder is a new arrangement. The folder previously, as recently as version 1 for this program year, the backup folder was your documents folder. But Microsoft made some changes with how that is configured and the file path that leads to that documents folder. So we had to make a change to a folder that we knew would be the same for everybody's machine. So that's why we went with this C:\data performance reports backup. And what I'll say for that, the creation of that folder or any of these concepts, the expectation is not that you'll leave today's discussion as an expert in running performance reports. We just want to give you an overview, let you know what they can and can't do and some ways to work with them. If you ever need any kind of help, please do feel free to reach out to us. We can do a quick email exchange all the way through meeting via Zoom to cover the process. And that's always nice because whenever we meet with someone individually or meet with a data team at an agency, we can kind of meet you where you are, figure out where you're at in the process, pick up from there, and get you where you want to go. So always keep that in mind. And I think you all know that, but it bears repeating. So now we kind of left off with the backup performance data to Excel idea. And again, think of the 2 B's, build and backup. You want to kind of do them in that order, build, then backup. and just pair those together as you move forward so that you're not only creating that performance report, but you're backing it up as you go. Once you reach the point that you have a new template, so let's project ahead to, say, May of 2024 here in a couple months. And I can't believe that's a couple months already. That's crazy. May of 24. Okay. Anyway, so we go ahead, May of 24. I'm sitting here and I have version 3 of the template. I want to, of course, populate that template first. Then, once I've populated the template, then I can click Restore, and Restore is going to look back for these files, this one and this one, and it's going to pull them into version 3, such that once I've clicked Restore, I'd go up and click 064, and I should see exactly the same thing. If you don't, something went sideways and something went wrong. Don't panic, and I'm just going to close that for now. Don't panic if you restore and nothing shows up. What we always recommend is, if you're running performance reports, keep the old, what would then be the old version of the template that has your performance reports in it. So long as you have that version, that your data is going to be in there, and you can always back up from there and click Restore. If you feel like you're stuck and you're a little worried about transitioning, again, that's a perfect opportunity to reach out to us. We don't want anybody to feel kind of scared that they're going to lose their data. It can happen, but as long as you keep a working version, and again, for those of you that are currently on version 1 and had done performance reports, that would be keeping that. And then once you get started in version 2 and everything's working, then you can get rid of version 1, that's fine, or you can keep it. The files aren't that big. You can keep them, it's no big deal. So that's the restore. And there's text on here that Steve has here to give a little reminder to everything we're talking about. And then the final piece on this page, as far as a function is concerned, and then there's a couple other things up here I want to mention. But the final piece is this delete date button. And we can delete specific days. So if you recall on the 064 report that I ran, the 29th leap day was doubled. Maybe it's just because of how the moon was aligned and it was a leap day and something weird happened and we got a duplicate. We don't really usually want that. If I click this dropdown, this dropdown references the tables that we've created and has the same dates in it, which of course correspond to each row in the performance report. You won't see duplication here like we saw for 229. It just reports each date once. But if I select 229, because it's March 1st and 229 was just yesterday, maybe I say to myself, I go to this report and I look at it, and I'll just zoom in a little bit here again. And I just don't like how that's duplicated with 229. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to go to the delete date. I'm going to make sure I select 229, and I'm just going to click delete. And this gives you the classic, are you sure you want to delete data? Yes, I do. And now it's done. So now I can check this drop down. 29 is gone. Well, 929 is there, but 120 or 229 is gone. And now if I run this report, and again, this should run it new because I had that table, or the tab rather, closed. And you can see, well, maybe you can't see, that's pretty small. You could see the 229 is now gone. And fortunately for me today, 3.1, maybe what I could do here is just build, and I would just create a new row. It'd say 3.1. It's only a day off, and then I could just carry on. So that's one thing that you can do. The longer you go without catching something like that, or catching a date you don't want, the harder it is to build it back up, because again, whatever you create today with today's export is really just going to be aligned with March 1st. So I can't really go back and recreate 229, because that date's passed, and whatever I click the build button, it's going to label it 3.1. So hopefully that makes sense. The general idea there is if you make a mistake creating a line you didn't mean to, you can use this delete date function to get rid of it. Any questions about just any of the remaining restore stuff or with the delete date function? Okay, we do have a question in the chat. My 064 is empty. How do I build performance data? Is there a cheat sheet? Well, the performance reports do have, so I think the cheat sheet for now is just kind of knowing that you would both populate and then build after that. There is a limitation that's very specific. And Myra, I forget what agency you're with, but if you have data in your template and you are a subcontractor, and the only data you have in your template is your agency data as a subcontractor. Subcontractors by themselves, unfortunately, cannot run the performance reports. There's a limitation based on the data itself that we get out of eData and how the contracts. So yeah, Northampton, yeah, you should be able to. So what I'll say, Myra, is if you're stuck, I'm not sure we're going to have time to individually troubleshoot this afternoon. But if you want to run these reports and this appeals to you and you're having some issues getting them going, please feel free to reach out, and we'll make it some time to connect, and we'll get you going. One additional thing that I wanted to share is just to kind of show two different things that Steve has built into ways to display the reports. What we've talked about here is building them, backing them up, restoring them, kind of those functions of actually creating them and maintaining them. But how you view them and how you might use them, there's combined checkbox. These are just checkboxes here, and there's a condensed checkbox. If we run 064 that we've been doing, you'll see all the information for both the main contractor and the subcontractor. Now, to show this, I have to close this again. So I'm going to close print preview. Now I'm going to do combined. Actually, let me go back to again. I apologize for the extra click here. I should have done one thing. So you'll note the contracted numbers here, 370 and 200. That's the contracted enrollment. I close this and I click combined and I run that 64 again. You'll see that 370 and 200 are now combined up here, where what's happened is, and there's a note in yellow that says that this is the case, your main and sub are added together in this top section. So what this does is, if you have one or more subcontractors and you want to view your progress as a consortium, you can do that with this combined report. So this is the same data, but displayed a different way. Again, it's the sub and the main combined. The sub view remains the same. This is unchanged. But the combined section up here, next to the header, where it's in yellow, that shows you your combined data. That can be useful just to kind of get a really overall picture of how things are going with your agency and another agency. And I see a question in the chat. I'll get to that in a minute. But the other option is this condensed option. As the year goes on, particularly if you choose to update your template and then do your build at least every other week, or maybe every couple weeks, you will have many rows, as you might imagine, by the end of the program year. And that just might be a little too much, especially because if you have 3 or 4 subcontractors, each one's taking up the same amount of rows on the report. So there is this condensed feature, and it's going to display the most current date. And when I click it, you'll see once condensed is selected, you'll actually get what it just exactly what it says, a condensed report that shows you one line using the most recent date for each agency shown, so direct and subcontractors. This can be useful either if you have, again, a ton of data and you're getting towards the end of the year and you just have maybe 50 rows. This can sum it down to something that's a little easier to digest. Plus, again, what's really nice is if you have more than one subcontractor, you may be up to multiple pages in your report toward the end of the year. So this is a nice condensed summary. Plus, you can combine this, no pun intended. You can combine this with the combined feature to actually show both. So again, we'll click again and we'll zoom in again. And you can see now we have combined and condensed, because we see that contracted enrollment of 570 there. And this row is the most up to date, which happens to be 27 because I deleted 229, showing us the condensed and combined version of this pair, main and subcontractor. So a lot of moving parts. We don't expect you to be an expert at running performance reports. Some of this is best done, hands-on. But we wanted to present this in a way that showed all of the functions just to make sure you were all familiar with it, cover a little bit of the items that were new to version 2. And I then see a question. Oh, I just answered the question. All right, yes, okay. So that was our purpose, just to kind of revisit the performance reports. They've been in here for a couple years now, and they've taken on a slightly different twist with the backup and restore function in version 2. There's documentation for that in the email that I sent out saying version 2 is available. So if you don't have that documentation from the email, let me know. I can put you on the email list and send you that email. Let us know if you need any help or assistance directly with the performance reports. There's frankly no substitute for that many times. But now we'll just kind of pause for a moment and see if you have any other questions about the performance reports before we segue into just kind of general version 2 questions. Myra says, is there a way to do individualized performance reports by class? Not at this time. So the performance reports proper that we're seeing here on this page is a process that's always by agency. What you can do, Myra, if you maybe have looked at this option in the template, is there is this class group reports page. And if I click on this, this is a whole other thing. We might do a Friday webinar on this page because there's a way to do some filtering and sorting using keywords. I think this might be worth reviewing. We don't have time for it today, but this is a way to assess different aspects of reports, of performance by classes, because you can run table 4s by classes, you can get attendance reports, you can do level gains, all those kinds of things by class. So Myra, maybe the answer isn't so much that yes or no, we can or can't do the performance reports. There isn't that by class, but maybe rather, yeah. So maybe we should set aside a time to talk about if you're doing extra math beyond what the queries are providing. Maybe there's some things that we can discuss, just some ideas to cut down on having to do that. Other questions? I'll just go back to performance. Any questions you have about the template, performance reports? We've got a few minutes. We can talk about that. As an aside, while you're thinking about potential questions, what I will add to the discussion is that on the PA Adult Ed Resources website, there are modules for setting up and using the template, and there's also a template guide. Because of the changes we've made to version 2, while those items are still generally useful, they're not as relevant as they once were. And we wanted to wait until we were finished and finalizing all of the changes in version 2 before we updated those documents and those modules. So what we're in the process of doing now is completely redoing both modules and the template guide. And so look for that somewhere down the road once that's done, because then that'll be a one-to-one resource for use with version 2. But for right now, there is a bit of a gap between those resources because we're kind of in between the update from version 1 to version 2 with those. So stay tuned. We'll announce when the up-to-date version of those is available. Steve, did we miss anything? Anything else you want to make sure everybody knows?
I might just add that the original design of the delete date function was so that you can do a lot of data entry and building in a single day and check yourself, and then not end up with 2 or 3 or 4 rows that are the same date with different data, because every time you download from eData and then import it, update the template, and then build, it uses the latest data. So even though it's the same date, it can be different data. And so the delete date function is designed for the end of the year, let's say, when you're really cranking to try to get stuff in to kind of see where you are. So don't think that multiple dates is a mistake. That's actually a feature to be used at your discretion. And if you need more details on how to make that happen, other than what Michael told you, just give us a call.
Yep. Thank you, Steve. So what I'll say is, Myra, let's plan to connect. Shoot me an email and we'll discuss connecting over a couple of the questions that you had. And that, of course, is an offer that extends to all of you at any time. And I think some of you, we've already done that, and we can continue to do that as your journey kind of goes along. Some of it, it becomes, hey, I just got to figure out how to do this. First of all, just the basic setting it up and running it. And then the real work begins, where you start getting in there and analyzing the data, looking at your numbers, and getting a real feel for how things go. But if there's ever a hiccup along the way, even if you felt like you were really kind of comfortable with it and then something unexpected happens, again, just phone call, email away, let us know, and we'll get you straightened away. But again, my biggest recommendation is do that build and backup as you go, and keep any old version of the template you have your performance reports in. If you do those things, you should be in good shape, and your data should be safe and backed up. All right, well, that's all we have for you today. It was good seeing everybody. Sounds like at least the second half of the weekend is going to be pretty nice for everybody, so I hope you all enjoy. We'll stay on the line as we usually do to take any questions that you may have. Otherwise, we'll see you again in a month. Be well, everybody. And it's not Happy Leap Year anymore. That was yesterday. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep, take care.